Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 9 of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. This is a podcast for all librarians wherever you are in your journey. It is filled with amazing guests, important topics, and engaging conversations that will inspire, engage, and support all of us as future ready librarians. I am your host, Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the district teacher librarian at Van Meter Community School in Van Meter, Iowa, and serve as the Future Ready Librarians leader. I have the pleasure of working within my library and school community and also with others around the country and world through the Future Ready Librarian events, conferences, consulting, writing, and more. I am honored to bring these voices and the work of others to our podcast and to all of you. Well, today you're in for a real treat because I get to have my amazing friend and librarian. You're going to hear all about her in a minute, Kristen, on the show. And I have been wanting to have a conversation with you again because you have been so busy. And I think you're the person that we all look to when it comes to talking about digital citizenship. And so I am really excited to have you on. And we're just going to start by having you tell a little bit about yourself.
Of course. I'm Kristen Mattson. I'm a recovering English teacher, first and foremost. And I don't remember who ever told me that phrase, but I stole it and I've used it. And I invite all of you recovering English teachers to use it too, because I think it's really accurate. After teaching English, I moved into school librarianship. And I did that job for about, 10, 12 years. And now I work at the University of Illinois. I teach our pre-service teacher librarians, which is so fun. I get to go out and support them in the field. And I also teach courses in media and information literacy. But a big part of my work has been digital citizenship. It was something that librarians were tasked with in my district back in 2013. And like most librarians, I was looking for good, high quality resources to use with our students. And I just found myself really frustrated by what was available for us in 2013. So the topic became sort of my focus for my dissertation. And then, I don't know, it just kind of picked me. So here I am still talking about digital citizenship more than a decade later. But
I
it's an
love it.
important topic, and I'm happy to be the mouthpiece for it.
Yeah, well, and I think that as we, think about a new school year and we think about too, like all of the new tools out there. I know that we were both at ISTE and we've, watched in the last year and especially like throughout the summer, reading and listening and just getting ready for a new year with our kids. It's something too that we need to think about even more.
Mm.
And it is like, I love it because I always ask my guests to write up a little summary. And one thing that you said was librarians can shine as leaders in this
Yeah.
space, in this conversation. And I truly believe that that is something that we can really shine with as leaders within our district when it comes to digital citizenship. So just start like by telling people, I think number one, even some people might not, they've probably heard the term before, but they probably even
Sure.
wonder sometimes what digital citizenship like entails.
Yeah, so that's the question that I had when I started my doctoral work because I had heard people talk about it in so many ways. And as I looked at different resources that were available back then, some of it was like I don't know. I equate it to like the DARE program of the 90s, which was like, don't do drugs or you're gonna die. It was digital
Yes.
citizenship was like, if you go on the internet, bad things are gonna happen. And it was this weird disconnect because we were trying to move toward a one-to-one environment. We were trying to get kids to use our academic databases and our digital tools. And then we were turning around and telling them what a scary place the internet was. So the definition and the concept has really evolved a lot over the last 20 years. I currently like to use a definition that really talks about digital citizenship as all of the skill sets that people need to be well-rounded, productive, engaged, active citizens of the internet. So that means a lot of things, right? It definitely means safety because we have to be safe when we're out in online communities, but it also means things like media and information literacy, which is just the reading and writing and speaking and listening of the digital world, right? It also means things like digital health and well-being, and making sure that we're doing some of those SEL type skills over in online spaces too. And then I also think we have to consider social responsibility. When I think about a traditional civics class that I maybe would take in middle school or in high school, it talks about our role as a citizen in a much larger, picture. And we have to think about those things online too. So how do we help kids understand the structures of the internet, their place inside of that structure, where they can have a voice to make change if they want to make change, and kind of how all those pieces work together. So it's a lot of things,
It is a
a
lot
lot
of
of things,
things. And
but
it's so many things when we think about our kids, like all the ways, that all these things that they have to do and we have to do. And so tell us why librarians are so well suited to lead that conversation and this work that we do around digital citizenship.
I think librarians have been advocating for these types of skills for a really long time, right? We have been leaders in technology spaces for a long time, teaching kids everything from like basic keyboarding 20 years ago to, the newest Web 2.0 tools. We've always been leaders in technology. And we are now to a place where everybody has to have a lot of the same skills that we have. So we've been, leaders in fact checking and finding information and telling misinformation from fact, but everybody needs those skills now. It's not enough for just a single person in the school, to have all of that knowledge. We need everybody to have that knowledge. So I think we sometimes do ourselves a disservice when we don't think about ourselves as leaders. I know I have a bias where I kind of move through the world and I'm like, wait, not everybody has that skill, not everybody has that knowledge, but we do have a very specific skill set. And as more and more people start talking about, even tools like generative I think we can be there to, remind folks about things like student privacy, copyright, bias within searches, things that we've been talking about forever. We've got it. We can do it.
Yeah, that is, I know. And that's one thing, not only, what we do in our library, but especially as we start back to school and we think about all the ways that we collaborate with our teachers and the questions that our teachers and just the knowledge that they need to have too, to work with our kids. And it doesn't matter if they're our older ones or our younger ones, but making sure that we also help our teachers to know these things. And one thing that I love that you have been working on the last few years are these amazing books that you have written with
Mm-hmm.
ISTE. And I have given those so many times to my teacher friends too, not just, for us as librarians, but when we talk about that. And I think that the great thing too about your books is that you encourage teachers to hack or weave digital citizenship and
Mm-hmm.
ethics into their existing curriculum. What does
Yes.
that look like in practice? Because I think that that is, not only telling us about your great resources if people
Right.
haven't heard, but what does that actually look like?
Yeah. So we do this thing in education where we just try to constantly be doing more, and we don't always show teachers where that fits or how to make it fit. Are you a Schitt's Creek fan, Shannon? Have you watched Schitt's
No,
Creek?
I
No.
have,
Oh my gosh.
I
There's this,
know. I
you
need
have to watch.
to.
There's this fabulous scene where the main one of the main characters, Moira, is trying to teach her son, another main character, David, how to make their family enchilada recipe. And she's looking at the recipe card and she's like, okay, the next step is to fold in the cheese. And he's got this little bowl of shredded cheese and he's like, what do you mean? What does fold mean? And she's like, I can't tell you everything. It just says fold. And so they do this whole back and forth of like, fold in the cheese. What does this mean? And I think we do that in education too, right? Where we tell people, hey, now you have to do media literacy. Now you have to do SEL. Now you have to do digital citizenship. We can't give you more time in the day. So fold it in, incorporate it. But nobody's telling you what to do with this broken bowl of cheese. How do I fold broken cheese? So when I think about like hacking or weaving these things into our existing curriculum, it's for two reasons. I mean, one, we're never going to get more time in our day. We have a lot on our plates. And I think we can all agree that digital citizenship is important, media literacy is important, SEL is important. But where do we do that when we're already teaching reading, science, math? So there's a couple of ways that I think we can start to think about folding the cheese of digital citizenship in. One of my favorite ways to do it with our elementary folks is just through our read aloud times. So on my website, I have a big curated list of picture books that talk about all of these topics in really fun ways. Almost every elementary school I've ever visited has some unit of instruction on fairy tales and remixed fairy tales. And we often will read The Three Little Pigs and then, you know, the wolf's tale of the Three Little Pigs, and we help kids look at perspective. There's some really fun remixed fairy tales like hashtag Goldilocks, which take some of our favorite characters and throw them into a digital setting. So I don't necessarily have to find time to do a 30 or a 40-minute standalone lesson from a publisher. Even though those are great lessons, I might just be struggling to find time in my day. So if we can think about what we already do, like read alouds or writing goals, or with our older students, debate goals, inquiry, research goals, I think we can find ways to talk about these topics embedded into the skills and content that we already want to teach. At the high school level, I'm working with some government teachers right now, and we're writing up some interesting inquiry projects. And one of the inquiries that we're doing is how can artificial intelligence support the criminal justice system? And so they're looking at the pros and the cons of AI inside of that criminal justice system. And there is no right or wrong answer because there's pros and cons. So they're just exploring those things and practicing all of those inquiry and research skills that we would ask them to practice anyway. But we're doing it through that lens of digital ethics, which is really fun.
Yeah, and I love that too, because, and that's something that I always remind our teachers and even ourselves or other librarians that they're not only like digital citizenship, but a lot of skills as librarians that we support and teach. You know, that's such a great way to look at it. And I think that it makes it, you know, we're not only celebrating like during Digital Citizenship Week or digital literacy, it can be part of the conversation and the work all year long, because that we all are using technology with our kids. And I think that it's a great thing to remind families when I have, you know, families of young kids and they ask me a question, or maybe they've had a bump at home and they need some help. I love that you mentioned picture books, because it is the perfect way to be able to kind of weave or fold that, you know, digital citizenship into those conversations, even at home too.
It is. We didn't talk about family stuff, but since we're talking about family stuff, I did a whole bunch of work with the National PTA over the last few years, and they've been putting out some really great resources to help families have these conversations. And I do think as, you know, librarians, we can't do this work alone. We just can't anymore. The technology is everywhere. The skills are too important. So, you know, we can help our teachers by showing them ways to like hack this stuff into the curriculum. But I also think we can invite our parent communities to have these conversations too. So National PTA has put out some standalone programs, I guess, if you will, that are designed to be taught by parents. So it doesn't have to be, Shannon or Kristen, expert librarian, leading the program. All the materials are there for your super eager parent volunteer to grab. And I think as a librarian, we can just point those people towards those resources and offer space and offer support so that families can have those conversations with each other. I've also worked with a district recently that did a digital citizenship family event that looked a lot like our family literacy nights do, where we don't invite families in and then talk at them about literacy. We invite families in to do literacy-based activities. And this school took that idea and remixed it into a digital citizenship family event. So they had all kinds of really great centers that invited parents and kids to sit together and talk about these different digital topics, what they mean for their families. And what I love about that is nobody in the room has to be the expert. Because even though I know a lot about technology, I don't know about your family, your beliefs, your situation. As a librarian, I can just facilitate that dialogue amongst family members instead. So that was a really great, I think, example of how librarians can support families without having to do all of the work themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is such a great idea. I was recently talking to a friend. Well, I have seen this happen in a couple places, and they've even done like story walks, like
Oh, fun.
outside with books and having that conversation and turning it into an event. And so I love that. I always jot things down during my recordings with my friends, and that was one that I'm like, oh, that'd be a really good idea. I love it. I
I
love
have a
it.
Wakelet board somewhere. I'll
Yes.
get you the link. I have a Wakelet board of all
Okay.
family
Yeah.
resources, including those wonderful resources
Yeah,
from
we'll have
National
to
PTA.
include that
So
too. I love that. So
definitely.
aside from like lesson support and the things that we've already talked about, what conversations do you think that librarians can just facilitate when they have a seat at the table? And this is a great way too, as we go into a new year, or a lot of people, if they're even new to this conversation or changing jobs, I think that it's so important to think about this question.
Yeah, so I do think about my own lessons as a librarian. I think about lessons that I'm helping teachers with. I do think about that family component, and a space that librarians don't often find themselves in is like a policies sort of space. But I think that we have an opportunity to have a seat at that table and bring some interesting perspectives. A lot of districts around the country right now are trying to decide what their policies and practices are going to be around the use of AI, either with teachers or with students or in grading and lesson design, whatever that might be. I think librarians can be the ones to say, okay, well, what about student privacy? How are we going to ensure that our students' data is protected? What about some of the biases that are bubbling up inside of these AI tools? How can we address them? I don't want us to be like the Debbie Downer at the table, because we do run the risk of that when we're kind of the yeah, but people. But I do think there are things that we advocate for, specifically just through that lens, that other educators might not be thinking about when they get excited about a tool.
Yeah. Well, and we have such an opportunity with these conversations. Like, I know that AI had so many questions last year, but we need to be part of that
Yeah.
because we, not only maybe have a unique perspective and knowledge, but it also opens the doors for so many other things too that we can
Mm.
lead in. So I
Yeah,
love
definitely. I also think we could look at like policies and practices and do our policies align with the things that we're doing in the
that.
classrooms.
Yep.
So, I got into this work because I felt an icky push pull between what we were trying to accomplish and kind of what we were saying in the classroom. And if we've really embraced this idea of teaching kids how to grow in digital worlds, and we're trying to do that in the classroom, but then our student handbook is still really quick to like punish and restrict and not support kids in the way that our curriculum is. Like, do we have an alignment there between what we're saying in the classroom and what's happening in our policies and in our practices? So,
it's so true. So many things to think about.
So many.
I know. And I want you to tell everybody too about where they can find you online. And also, I think you should give a shout out for your new book.
I should. I have it right here.
I love it.
I love the new cover. It's super fun.
Too.
If people have read the first Digital Citizenship in Action, they might be going, why do I need a second edition? Because I never really understood what second editions were all about. It's about 50% new content. So take a lot of time and pull content out that is no longer relevant. The first edition was 2017. So our world has changed a bit. And there's so many new lesson ideas in here from awesome educators and librarians across our country that have shared their ideas and stories with me. We've also expanded down because, again, in 2017, we were really thinking about digital citizenship in sort of that secondary space. Now we know we've got one-on-one environments from our littlest learners. So we've expanded, given a lot of ideas and strategies to use with K-5 students as well. So folks can find that at the ISTE bookstore or on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And then people can find me online at teachdigcit.com. And I don't know, all over social media.
I love it.
I'm everywhere.
I'm so happy that you joined me today, and it's always great just to, this gets me thinking of so many things, and I know that our listeners will feel the same way. So we appreciate all your work and your voice in this world because you really do make a difference. So thank you,
Shannon. Go Hawkeyes, right?
Go Hawkeyes. Thank you, Shannon. As always, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. And a very special thank you to our sponsors, Follett Content. You make a difference in our libraries, schools, and within our lives, and that of our students every day. We appreciate everything you do. I hope you can take what you learned in today's podcast and put it to use within your practice as a Future Ready librarian. If I can support you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me on X or Instagram at Shannon M. Miller, or to my email at shannonmcclintockmiller@gmail.com. I am always happy to help. Until next time, friends, keep finding ways to lead within and from your library.